Hello everyone, welcome back to Too Sweet MTG and welcome to another Cube Tuesdays. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the pitch elementals from Modern Horizons 2. So we're going to be talking about Solitude, Subtlety, Grief, Fury, and Endurance. What are they? What are they good at? Why are they good? Which ones you should think of running in the cube, and how best to use and abuse them. So firstly, what are they? They're all creatures with very strong enter the battlefield effects. Solitude is a Swords to Plowshares, Subtlety is a tempo counterspell, Grief is some hand attack, Fury is a burn spell that goes to multiple targets, and Endurance is some graveyard hate. What makes these even more busted is that you don't need mana to get that enter the battlefield effect. They all have the evoke cost of pitching a card of the same colour. When you do that, you get to put the creature into play. With Evoke, you can also pitch multicoloured cards to them, so you can pitch of Omnath to 4 of the elementals. When you use that Evoke ability, you are still casting the creature. It is an alternate casting cost. Part of that cost is that the creature is automatically sacrificed when it comes into play, but importantly, you still get that enter the battlefield effect. 3 of them also have Flash, meaning that you can do this at instant speed. So why are they good? Well, basically, the effects are all strong, and the creatures are also quite good. You have the flexibility of discarding a card to get the effect without paying any mana for it, or you can just cast the creature, you still get the effect, and then the creature will stick around. And then because these effects are on creatures, you can reanimate them, you can flicker them to get that value again and again. So you have this awesome sweet spot of awesome effect that you don't need any mana to use, combined with pretty good creature with awesome effect that you can pay mana for. Next up, I'm going to rank the 5 pitch elementals individually, talk about why they're good, where best to use them. This is also specifically for cube. So to me, the worst one is actually Subtlety. It is 2 blue for a 3/3 creature elemental incarnation with flash, flying, and when Subtlety enters the battlefield, choose up to 1 target creature spell or planeswalker spell. Its owner puts it on the top or bottom of their library, and obviously it has the evoke, meaning we can cast it for free, by exiling a blue card from our hand. There will be some lower powered cubes where this is good, but I've just been continually underwhelmed by this card. Basically, evoking this card is rubbish. You're 2 for 1ing yourself, and your opponent gets to pick where the card goes. Also, because it specifically says spell, you cannot use this to remove a creature or planeswalker on the board. You can't flicker them, you can't bounce them, anything like that. The spell has to be on the stack. Like, don't get me wrong, this is a fine card when you're casting it for 4 mana. Tempo your opponent back a turn, you get a 3/3 flyer for 4 mana. That part is fine, but what makes these evoke elementals better than other cards is the fact that we can evoke them. And because Subtlety is only really good when you're casting it, it's not really great when you're evoking it. For me, it has to be the worst. Then in 4th place, we have Endurance. Endurance is 1 green for a 3/4 creature elemental incarnation with flash and reach. It has the ability, when Endurance enters the battlefield, up to 1 target player puts all the cards from their graveyard on the bottom of their library in a random order, and obviously has evoke, exile a green card from your hand. Like Subtlety, you are more likely to actually want to cast this creature, but it is also 1 less mana. It has flash reach on a 4 toughness body. That is pretty good. You're going to be trading off nicely with this creature. So this is most likely killing whatever you're flashing it into block. The enter the battlefield of this is quite interesting. So the times you will want this specific effect will be less than Subtlety, I will admit. But when you do this, and when you need it, it'll be backbreaking for your opponent who's like filling up their bin. Maybe you're doing this against Reanimator as they're about to reanimate something back. So its application is definitely nicher than Subtlety. Like you are going to want that ability in less games than Subtlety. But Subtlety's ability is just not fantastically good. So while Subtlety's ability will come up more often, the actual effect you get from it isn't very good. Whereas with Endurance, when this does come up, it'll just stonewall an opponent out of a game. I am aware that that could make Endurance technically more of a sideboard card, but the fact that this is also green and could just come down on turn 2 if you need to attack an opponent, that is also perfectly fine. Sometimes slightly above rate beaters are good. At number 3, we have Grief. Grief is 2 black for a 3/2 creature elemental incarnation. It has menace, and when Grief enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it, that player discards that card, and obviously it has evoke, exile a black card from your hand. So Grief is definitely one you are happy evoking out. There's so many points where you might want to check that the coast is clear before trying to combo off or reanimate something big. It does say non-land card, so that gets the vast majority of things that you want to be hitting in a cube anyway. So importantly, you will get some value out of this. Also, as we mentioned, it's in black, so you can reanimate it back. You can get your value all over again with this. As a creature, the toughness 2 isn't fantastic, but 3 power and menace is quite good. This will get in for some damage when you need it to. Noticeably, this one is not flash, because instant speed hand attack would be miserable. At number 2, we have Fury. Fury is 3 red for a 3/3 creature elemental incarnation with double strike, and when Fury enters the battlefield, it deals 4 damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers, and obviously it has evoke, exile a red card from your hand. Another one without flash, but by god, we do not care. The evoke ability can take out so many creatures in a cube setting, it's really dumb, like you can wipe an opponent's board with this quite easily. Then also as a creature, a 3/3 double strike for 5 mana will just end games. And you possibly also, if you're hardcasting this, you probably removed a fair chunk of your opponent's boards. Like this card could just be your win condition if you need it to be. And also, it's in red, which those decks are often running maybe some more equipment to pump up that double strike even more. It's a very, very awesome card to have in your hand because early, it can just be the removal you need to get your early creatures through. Late game, it can be your win condition if you are flooding out in your mono red deck, something like that. It's a very, very good card. Which brings us on to the best pitch elemental in Cube, and it's Solitude. Solitude is 3 white for a 3/2 creature elemental incarnation with flash, lifelink, and when Solitude enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 other target creature. That creature's controller gains life equal to its power, and obviously it has evoke, exile a white card from your hand. So, Swords to Plowshares on a stick. This card is absolutely nuts. Remember, importantly, you can be tapped out when you play this. People don't expect this effect in white, and it really gets players. This is the one you'll most likely be evoking more than the rest because it's just that strong an effect. As a body, I will admit it is not as good as Fury, but paying 5 mana, exiling the biggest thing coming at you, and then blocking and trading off with something else is just fantastic. And then the lifelink can really help bring you back into some games. So those are the 5 pitch elementals from Modern Horizons 2. What are the things you need to think about when putting them in a cube? So there's 2 main things you need to think about. Firstly, how good are they in my cube? In most cubes, these will all be strong and they will have a place. Genuinely, any cube running rares could happily run these cards. In more budget cubes, there is a chance that they could either be too expensive or too strong. They are played in so many formats now. Until they get a reprint, they are just going to be pricey, unfortunately. So I have recently cut Subtlety from my cube because, as I said, I've just been underwhelmed by that card. The other 4 go into the highest power level of cubes and fit in there and are just very, very strong. Subtlety is also the cheapest of them, so maybe that one has more of a place in a more budget, lower powered level environment. Maybe that is where it will flourish more than the other ones. The other thing to think about when including these in your cube is, how can we juice them up? How can we get more from these cards? So the most obvious place to start with these is instant speed, blink, or flicker effect. So something like Ephemerate is obscene with these cards. So with these pitch elementals, you can do the evoke thing, cast them for free, put them into play, get the enter the battlefield effect. Then with the sacrifice trigger on the stack, you can cast a card like Ephemerate to blink it. It'll come back as a new copy of that creature that has just come into play regularly. It won't be sacrificed from then onwards. So effectively, you have paid 1 mana for Ephemerate, you have got the enter the battlefield twice, and the only other cost you have played is you have exiled, in theory, a worse card of the same colour from your hand. Like, that is just so much value. Like, imagine doing that to a Fury and just wiping someone's whole board. Or even imagine doing that on turn 1 with something like a Grief. You just take the 2 best cards out of your opponent's hands. Like, that is unbelievably backbreaking. Like, how does your opponent come back from that? The other thing that you can do is with like Undying effects. So I personally run Malakir Rebirth in my cube because you can also cast that in response to the sack trigger. The creature will come back. It kind of works the same as the flickering, but it's going via the graveyard and then coming back. Like, I have done that turn 1 with Grief, and you just feel a little bit dirty. Like, you really screwed up your opponent there. And I've also done it late game with a Solitude as well. Like, there's just such big games, and there's just such an immense amount of value that you're getting from these cards. Once you get into kind of like more custom cubes, then the value in these can go up even more. If like Blink is heavily supported as an archetype rather than just being kind of like a little bit of sprinkling of an Ephemerate here, a Restoration Angel there. If Blink is a full archetype in a cube, then these cards are obscene and go up in value a bunch. Like, Panharmonicon doesn't see that much play in most cubes, but in a specific kind of build-around cube where you have these kind of big signpost cards, something like a Panharmonicon, then these go absolutely wild. Getting 2 of these effects just for free is obscene. The last thing to kind of consider is something that we did mention earlier in the video, and that is you can pitch multicolored spells to these. Like, one of the reasons Atraxa is seeing play in a lot of formats is because it pitches to 4 of these elementals. That doesn't mean you should be picking Atraxa to cast Subtlety in your white-black deck, but these cards do reward players for picking multicolored cards in the colors that they are already in. So say, for example, you are in white-black and you have a Subtlety and you have a Grief. White-black permanents just go up in value and are worth taking slightly higher because of that. Like, 3/4 color mid-range decks have got way better in the last couple of years because of these cards like the pitch elementals, because of the triomes, because of cards like Omnath and the Initiative. These all go into that kind of shell really, really well. Right, so I think we are going to end the video there. Do like, share, and subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, I'll see you all soon. Goodbye.